Alrighty people, how you doing? So this video is gonna be a DIY video where I would be showing you guys how you can adjust the preload on your Himalayan 450 by yourself at your home. And in the last video I told you guys why adjusting your preload is important and what are the best settings that I have for my Himalayan that you can copy too. So if you want to watch that video and if you want to know how the motorcycle behaves at different preload adjustments, click this link up here, click this video up here and do watch it completely. It would be super helpful. So before I start the video, I would like to say that some of you, my friends, you are super experienced and you know your way around the motorcycles, but we also have some people who are going to be doing it for the first time. So I would be explaining every single step in details. So please be patient with me. And yes, there is a trick to adjusting your preload on your Himalayan 450 without getting your knuckles bleeding, without bruising your fingers. And let's get down to business then. Alrighty, so the first things first, you would need your motorcycle standing on the center stand in order to adjust the preload on the rear suspension. So go ahead and get your motorcycle on the middle stand. Once that's done, remove the rear seat using the key to get access to the tools that we need. And underneath the rear seat you would find the toolkit. So from the toolkit you're gonna need the C-spanner and the extension tool, which is right here. The next thing that you're gonna need is something to protect your hands. Here I would be using my riding gloves, but if you do not have access to your riding gloves, you can wrap your hands in some sort of clothes. And if you have the working gloves, the technical gloves, that would be fantastic too. Moving closer to the rear suspension, you gotta find this mountain looking thingy at the very bottom of the spring. And I will show you in a minute how you can read which preload setting you're riding your motorcycle at. But first, let me show you how to use the C-spanner properly. Because if you do not know how to use the C-spanner properly, you would end up damaging your fingers and your knuckles real bad. So there are two principles that you gotta follow. First, make sure that these locks of the C-spanner, the front lock and the rear lock, they are locking in properly to these edges that you see in the suspension. These right here, these locks that you can see, the edges, you gotta make sure that the front end and the rear end of the C-spanner is locking into these edges properly. The next thing that you gotta be mindful of is you would need to have your C-spanner at a 90-degree angle to the spring that you're working on. If it's not at a 90-degree angle, it's just not gonna work and it would slip out of these locks. So if your C-spanner is tilted downwards like this, see here it's not making a 90-degree angle. It's somewhat maybe 60 or 70-degree angle. So you would need to have it tilted upward at a 90-degree angle. And here you can see that I cannot have my C-spanner at a 90-degree angle to the spring because of this black mud guard. It's coming in the way. So first things first, you would need to find a lock where the front of the C-spanner and the end of the C-spanner is locking in properly, and you're also getting a 90-degree angle, and you're also getting enough space to move the C-spanner. So right here my front end of the C-spanner is locking in, but the rear end is not locking in properly, and I'm also not making a 90-degree angle. So if I choose another lock, let's go further down. So right here I have my front end of the C-spanner locking into the suspension. The rear end of the C-spanner is also locking into the suspension, but I do not have any space to move the C-spanner around again because of this. Hang on, let me adjust my angle. Because of this black mud guard thing right here. So you can try these different locks. For example, right now I'm trying this one. If I go one lock further to the right, my C-spanner is not locking in. I can't go further down. Again, my C-spanner is not locking in. So currently I'm working on the left side of the motorcycle, and if you do not have any space to move the C-spanner around from the left side of the motorcycle, what you gotta do is you gotta move towards the right, and you would have to find one lock where you can move your suspension around. So let's go to the right and find a lock that can get us going. Okay, so we are on the right side of the motorcycle now, and you can see this mountain thingy is on the right too. And I would also like to give you a little bit of heads up. Make sure when you're working on the right side of the motorcycle, you gotta be mindful of the exhaust that you got right here. So if you just came riding your motorcycle, do not work on the suspension straight away, let it cool down. Anyways, let's get back to the topic. So we would need to find a lock where the C-spanner would lock in the front and the rear end, and we also have some space to move the C-spanner around. So right now the front and the rear end of the C-spanner is locked in properly, and it's also at a 90-degree angle, but I do not have space to move around my C-spanner because of the black mudguard thingy again. So as I'm currently riding at the hardest preload setting that I can have on my Himalayan 450, let me show you how you can go down on your preload adjustment, how you can make your spring softer, and then I would show you how you can count the steps that you have left or the steps that you're riding at, and then I would show you how you can make it harder again. So in order to make the suspension softer, what you gotta do is you gotta twist it to the right. So when you twist your suspension preload adjustment towards the right side of the motorcycle, your preload is gonna get softer. And when you twist it towards the left, your preload is gonna get harder. So as I'm currently riding at the hardest setting, I can show you how you can make your preload softer. So find a lock where the front and the rear end of the C-spanner is locked in properly. That's right there. And I'm also at a 90-degree angle. Let me pull it back a little bit. From this angle maybe it would work fine. Yep. Now what you gotta do is pull down on the C-spanner in order to rotate the spring towards the right side of the motorcycle, and in order to make the preload adjustment softer. So I'm pulling down on the spring right now, and you may see it moving very lightly, very gently, and I'm pulling on the C-spring very gently too. I'm not using a lot of force because I don't want to end up damaging the paint here, and for more than that I don't want to end up hurting my fingers. So that's one. Can you see now? Let me go closer. Hang on. That's right there, if you can see properly. So now you can see that I have one notch behind this mountain thingy. So that's the 6th notch that I was riding my motorcycle at, and now I am at the 5th. So the maximum adjustment that you can do on this spring is 6-step adjustment, and we just got from the hardest setting to 1 step softer. So we are currently at the 5th. Let me show you how you can go to the 4th. Again, you would need to lock in your C-spanner into these locks. Make sure the front and the rear both are locked into place, and your C-spanner is at the 90-degree angle too. And then pull down again to adjust the spring. That's 2 point down. So if you see the mountain thingy, it has 2 steps behind it, so we can go harder 2-step, or we can either go softer 3 steps, I believe. So let's see the softest that we can go. So we are currently at the 4th. Let's go to the 3rd. Again, lock your C-spanner in, and that's 3rd. Again, lock your C-spanner in, make sure it's at 90-degree. And it's easier to go softer, but it's easier to make your suspension harder. You would need a little more strength than as compared to making it softer. I forgot the count. Are you counting? So I don't know how many steps we just turned the suspension, but right now we are currently riding at the 1st notch, the very 1st notch. So that's the 1st notch of the preload setting. That's the softest that you can go on Himalayan 450. So now let me show you how you can read which notch you're riding at. You may already have an idea, but let me show it again. So on the left side of the motorcycle again, and you can see we have these steps behind this mountain thingy. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, and the 6th one is right there. So we are riding at the 1st notch right now. Now let's rotate the spring towards the left in order to make it harder. Again, you would need to find a spot where you can fit your C-spanner in properly at a 90-degree angle and make sure the both locks are locked in the front and the rear. Sometimes it can be tricky. Sometimes you may not find room on the left and then you would have to go back to the right, and looks like that's exactly what I gotta do now. Let's go to the right. So now we are making it harder. So remember guys, twisting the spring towards the right is gonna make it soft. Twisting the spring towards the left is gonna make it hard. All right, that's one. That's two. That's three. That's four. I can't go any further. I gotta find another lock again. So that was four, right? Yeah, that was four. For the fifth one, no, it's not working. Jesus. Okay. So for the fifth one, we would go back to the left and see if we can move it one step towards the left again. Alrighty, so on this side, find a lock. Yep, that's locked in. So pull it. It's getting harder. It requires more of my strength. There you go. Holy shit, that was the fifth, and we need one more. So you see guys, you gotta move around from left to the right side in order to find the right lock. So that's the lock where my C-spanner is locking in properly, but then I can't move my C-spanner because of this black thingy. Now I gotta go back to the right. So yeah man, that's what you gotta do. You gotta go from the left side to the right side in order to get the best settings. Let's find a lock. There you go. Pull it up. Yeah. Up. Fuck. There you go. There you go. So currently at the sixth step again. Holy shit. So there it was guys. This is how you adjust the preload on the spring of Himalayan 450, and I like to ride mine at 6th. And this is also a suggestion that I got from Adam Reman, the guy from Australia who was testing Himalayan 450 up in the mountains, and I left him a comments on his Instagram asking him what do you think would be the best preload setting to have the best sag on this motorcycle with the luggage and everything, and he was like turn it to the max until you have wounded knuckles. So he said the same thing. That's why I'm wearing these gloves. Alrighty folks, I hope this was helpful, and if you have any other questions, queries, comments, please leave them down below, and please be nice to the people in the community. You don't have to be an asshole if you know things more than yourself, if you know what I mean. Alrighty, over and out.